He walked over to the table where she was sitting, waiting for him. She looked stunning, even after the recent birth. Somehow, she had retained her allure, her sensual beauty that had always captivated him. He hadn't seen her in months, not since everything fell apart. Yet, here he was, sitting across from the woman who had once been the center of his world, the one he had loved beyond measure until she shattered his trust. Her invitation had come unexpectedly, a call out of the blue, asking to meet, to talk things over, to sort it out, as she put it, hoping they could somehow find a way back to each other. After ordering drinks and exchanging a few awkward, guarded pleasantries, he broke the silence with a blunt question. "You said you wanted to talk, so talk." She flinched at his harshness, visibly stung by his cold tone. With a tense, almost hesitant voice, she replied, Have you stopped being angry already?" He ignored her question, focusing instead on his own. "Why do you want to be together again?" His voice was firm, devoid of any warmth. She seemed momentarily caught off guard by his question, her face betraying a slight frown as she tried to gather her thoughts. In that fleeting expression, he saw what he thought was annoyance or even disapproval, which only reignited his simmering anger. "Good," he muttered, moving as if to stand. "I'm leaving." "Wait! Stop! Why are you leaving?" Her voice was laced with urgency, her nerves exposed. "You just got here. Answer my question," he demanded sharply, "and I'll think about staying." Her eyes met his, searching for some trace of the man she once knew. She could always read him through his eyes, but now all she saw was intense anger, tinged with something else, something colder, darker, and unyielding. I miss you. I want what we had before. I love you. I need you," she said, her voice trembling with a mix of vulnerability and desperation. His face softened just a little as he listened, but it was only a flicker. Settling back into his seat, he let her words hang in the air before responding. "You didn't need me when you were with him," he retorted, his voice laced with contempt. "How can you say you love me when you lied to me? When you deceived me, the whole time we were together, you were with him." Her face flushed, her head lowering in shame. "I know. I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking." She lifted her gaze to meet his, her eyes glistening with tears. "Please, I'm so sorry. I won't do it again. Just take me back." He shook his head. A mixture of anger and disgust etched across his face as he watched her tears. Once, those tears would have softened him. But now, all he felt was the cold weight of anger that refused to relent. "I thought you were different," he continued, his voice almost weary. "I thought you were serious about us, that what I felt and said mattered to you. But I was wrong. You're just another cheater, lying through your teeth." "No!" she pleaded, leaning forward desperately. "Don't say that. I love you. Only you. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. I regret it so much. Please give me another chance." Her face crumpled, tears streaming down in despair. He felt his anger flare once more, but he held it back, forcing himself to listen, if only for a moment. After a few moments of her quiet sobs, he began to speak again, his voice steady but cold. "When we first met, I thought I'd found the perfect woman. You were everything I'd been looking for. I had spent too long in a miserable place, feeling like I'd been wallowing in the filth of life. But then you came along and made me believe there was goodness, that there was something pure. Every day after that, I felt like I was flying." His voice turned bitter, sharp. "And then I found out about him. But you convinced me it was over. Against my better judgment, I believed you. After that, things changed, but we stayed together. I held on to what you told me, convinced myself to trust you. But this isn't over, is it? You lied to me. You planned it all, didn't you?" At his words, she made a pained sound, almost a moan, as though his accusations were physical blows. She wanted to deny it, to pretend it was all just a bad dream, but she knew she couldn't. The truth was undeniable, and they both knew it. You gave birth to his child, he said slowly, almost as if he still couldn't believe it. This isn't just a mistake, an accident. You deliberately got pregnant by him. That takes planning. It means choosing to stop taking your pills. You didn't just make one mistake. You made 100 little ones along the way to make sure it happened. So tell me, what exactly was the mistake? She shook her head, her tears renewed. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. He made me do it. Oh, really? He scoffed, his voice dripping with sarcasm. So he forced himself on you, made sure you'd stop taking your pills, timed it all perfectly over weeks, maybe even months. Her voice was frantic, searching for something that might make him understand. He was strong. He wouldn't take no for an answer. He wanted to be with me all the time. Then he wanted a child, and he found my birth control pills, threw them away. He stared at her unconvinced. And I'm supposed to believe this? You had no choice. You could refuse me all those times. Make it clear, no means no. But with him, you just what? Let it happen? Why? Tell me. Her gaze dropped, the room feeling like it was closing in as she struggled to find any defense, any reason he might understand. But his questions sliced through every excuse, exposing a truth she couldn't run from. Not anymore. In a quiet, dimly lit corner of the restaurant, the tension between the man and woman was palpable. Their hushed conversation had grown more intense, and soon, other diners began to turn their heads, momentarily distracted from their meals. The man's voice, louder than he intended, cut through the restaurant's ambience, startling even himself. Collecting himself, he looked at her with a deep, quiet fury and more calmly continued to press her. Why didn't you tell him no? What kind of control does he have over you that you just go along with whatever he says? He demanded, his voice sharper than before. The woman looked down, clearly uncomfortable, her voice barely a whisper. I'm really sorry. I don't know, maybe it's because he commands. She glanced up at him, almost as if afraid of her own words. Oh, and I'm not the dominating type. Is that it? He hissed, his voice laced with barely restrained anger. That's not what I meant, she stammered, her eyes pleading. You're loving, you don't take from me. You give. You're kind, caring, gentle, you listen to me. You don't force anything on me. That's why I love you so much. But he was unmoved, his expression growing darker. It did me a lot of good when you were in his bed. Not mine, didn't it? He retorted. You could have left him any time. Did he physically threaten you? Did he hold you against your will? She shook her head, her face reflecting the anguish of his words. No, she admitted softly. In fact, he continued mercilessly, you deliberately stayed with him, didn't you? Her voice broke as she pleaded. Please, why are you treating me like a criminal? You're acting like we're in court, and you're the prosecutor. Please stop. It hurts me too, he scoffed, barely containing his bitterness. I am a criminal defense lawyer. Have you forgotten that? You may not have broken any laws by being with him and having a child with him, but you broke something just as important. Your promise to me. How am I supposed to feel about that? He laughed cruelly. You told me you loved me, that you want us to have a family together, to spend the rest of your life with me, and like an idiot I believed it. She looked away, tears welling in her eyes as she felt the full weight of his words, unable to deny the truth in them. She had told him all of that, and yet here they were. Seeing her distress, she tried one last time. Please, she begged, give me another chance. I'll never see him again, I promise. I'll only be yours. I love you. I didn't realize how strong my feelings were until you stopped calling and we stopped seeing each other. I've missed you so much. Please, let's try again. The man looked at her thoughtfully, his mouth twisting in a bitter smile. All right, here's your chance. If you want me back, you'll get rid of the baby. Go to him. Tell him you hate him and that you despise the child he forced on you. Tell him you never want to see either of them again. His words hit her like a slap, her eyes widening in horror. What? She choked out, barely able to believe what he was asking of her. You heard me. Do that, and maybe we'll have a chance, he replied, his voice hard. We'll leave this place. Start over somewhere new. I'm a good lawyer. I can find work easily, and we can build a new life, but not with that child in it. She stared at him, paralyzed by his demand. The thought of abandoning her child, her son, made her feel physically ill. The depth of the pain she felt settled heavily in her chest as she realized that he was serious. Finally, she shook her head, barely whispering, I can't do that. He's my son. No matter who his father is, he's still my child. Please, don't make me choose like this. The man's face hardened, his eyes cold. Then that's it. It's either him or nothing. You lied to me. You thought you could have everything. Well, you can't. He stood, his decision final. I won't raise someone else's child. Please, can't we? She began, desperate. He shook his head. There's nothing left to say. You've made your choice. His voice was full of bitter resignation as he turned his back on her and walked out of the restaurant, leaving her alone with her grief and the crushing weight of her mistakes.